Hey there, internets. Welcome to Let's Play Games West Virginia. I'm Kevin.
I'm Heather.
And this is typically Pokemon Days, but today it's Harry Potter, and we're doing Harry Potter things. So unless you've been living under a rather large rock, probably Thursday, but definitely Friday, Wizards Unite dropped all across the internet the newest game from Niantic, in which one can play a Harry Potter wizard.
When he says all across the internet, he means the US and UK on the 20th.
That's true.
Everywhere else had some troubles. New Zealand had the beta release in April, so it has been a while. Thanks, Kevin. You can't see my Muscle Puff shirt, though, because I'm a nerd. April began the beta release in New Zealand and places like that, and now everybody got it, or at least the US and the UK. Other people are to get it in the next coming weeks and months. So we have been splitting our time between Wizards Unite and Pokemon Go. And it's super exciting. So is this the beginning of your footage then?
It is indeed.
It is indeed. Indeedly do.
So the game's really only been out for a couple of days. So at the beginning of the stream today, we kind of wanted to talk about what happens for the new player. So this is the intro screen. So that newspaper scene is something I think you only see one time. There's an owl swooping scene that occurs afterwards. And this is just an intro to the game. So the premise of the game is that there has been an event which has occurred, which has basically scattered
the calamity
items and creatures guarding these items around the magical world, and you have to go around to Pokestops, inns and fortresses, and collect those items and stick them back in the Pokedex, Harry Potter collection of rooms.
Registry.
And do those things. So I think it was a real challenge for Niantic to apply the universe of Harry Potter to Pokemon. I think they probably did a passable version of it, but there's going to be some issues that we're going to talk about.
I would like to argue, though, that if you have watched Sci-Fi at all, the channel, you know that Warehouse 13 has a very similar plot line in that there are magical artifacts and things which need to be rescued from the bad hands, i.e. the confoundables, right? So that's what is going on. It's a mix of Pokemon and Harry Potter and Warehouse 13 all in one game.
One of the things that I really like about the app, and it jumped out at me right away, is it looks great. So there's actually kind of like a color filter that's applied over your interaction with the game when you're using AR+. This is the first thing you're going to come across when you start playing. Hagrid has gotten stuck into some spider webs, and he must be freed. So the game works in a couple different ways, if you're using AR+, or you're not. So after I played for about 2 days, I turned off AR+, and I just started using kind of the splash screen that's in the background. And the gameplay is actually different. So one of the things you have to do is you have to line up 2 items, you have to hunt around. If you're in Pokemon Snap, you have to find the little golden footprints. There's an analog here, and that produces the confoundable. If you're not playing with AR+, you don't have to do that at all. By default, it's turned on, but it's a little bit faster, it's a little bit smoother, and you don't accidentally take a picture of your foot, which happened to me like 3 times. So, those are all benefits. It'd be even worse if you ended up with a picture of my foot.
But look at this cool point screen. So look at that animation.
This animation is super cool, like 5 times.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it takes a good amount of time to pass.
But you can tap through it.
You can tap through it. So you're going to see XP, you're going to see items that you acquired, and if you happened to rank up in one of the, I don't know, call them schools of magic, with the little subheadings, like dark arts and things. What do you call those?
Oh, the different categories, yeah.
Sure.
Of the
whatever the categories are.
Yeah.
If you rank up in those, that cutscene doubles in length. So you can see on top of there's a series of circles. Those all represent different kinds of... It's the same activity, but it's different kinds of activity.
There are 10 different kinds of foundables, is what they're going with. So those are all different things from pieces of furniture, things that are in the dark arts category, like in Diagon Alley and those sorts of things. There are also different creatures, right? Magizoology, as they're calling it. There are things from Hogwarts students, different events, different types of artifacts. There are books, all different kinds of things in the registry.
one of the things that you'll notice as play starts out for the new player, there are these pop-ups on the bottom which feature different NPCs. One is Harry Potter, one is, her name's Constance, I think.
Yes.
There's
Hermione.
4 NPCs that I've seen
There are
for
like
that.
8 or 9 NPCs.
Just that I've seen that I could recall. So there's actually a weird amount of reading-based prompts, and if you're not playing, I typically don't play any of these games with sound. The background music is actually kind of pleasant and thematic. These folks have voice actors who are reading their stuff, so you don't have to
with
read it.
Weird accents.
Yeah, sometimes from the land of misplaced accents.
For sure.
So, but it's a weird dialogue. So Heather almost always plays sound on. I play sound off. So that experience might be different.
It depends. I have turned off the music portion, but I play with the sound effects quite frequently. And that is true for Pokemon Go as well. I like the sound of events popping up, and that triggers for me that there's something to do.
So when you start off pretty much with a blank slate. There's a few things that will kind of define how your character operates. And one of those, actually, which doesn't appear to matter at all thus far, is your Hogwarts house. And so I kind of had expected that Hogwarts house would be analogous to Pokemon Go Team, but that's not the case. So you choose your Hogwarts house, you're not assigned. I used all of my Pottermore account stuff to fill that in, so you get to pick your Hogwarts house, you can design your wand, and I went ahead and did all of that from Pottermore. The one thing you can't choose is your Patronus, it's always that stag. But the thing that actually is analogous to the Pokemon Go team is profession, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, because you actually don't choose that until level 6. So the first, would you say maybe 10 levels are kind of introductory levels for the game, and they kind of bring in different features as you level up. So if you have a Pottermore account, you can design your wand exactly from that, or just pick whatever you'd like. But it's clearly, because they're all using Harry Potter universe stuff, it dials into that pretty well. Although some of these things are on a scale, which is not immediately apparent how that scale works. Like I had to hunt for unyielding.
Yeah, because you don't follow the thing. Thanks for the
Great.
follow.
Oh yeah, hey, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the chat, Haywood.
Welcome. We're playing Harry Potter.
One of the things to get a reward is to acquire 20 friends in the game. Right now, friends do not appear to be as daily integral as they are in Pokemon Go, although they are super helpful in fortresses, and we'll see that a little bit later. So if you're on your rush to that first spot of 20 friends, feel free to drop friend codes in the chat, which is over there, and maybe people will friend you. So I find that, especially after level 5, I'm skipping this cutscene almost all the time now.
Which cutscene?
The XP cutscene.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that cutscene, that scene happens after every single sticker item, right? Because it's a good sticker book. That happens after every single confoundable that you complete. So every time you do that, every time you level up, every time you rank up in those particular 10 categories. So it gets excessive quite quickly. And also, the information is also present when you tap it. So if you do tap through the screen, it'll show you how many of that image you've already collected, or I forget what they technically call it, the pieces, the fragments of that image. So it's not as if you're losing too much other than your valuable time.
So in these last 2 scenes, what we saw here was a list of daily tasks. And then we also have monthly goals. And it reminds me a lot of actually of the user interaction reward mechanism of PUBG, where you have lists of things to do each day, and then when you do them, you check off a thing on a calendar and you get extra rewards throughout the week and month. That's super cool, and I actually hope that that migrates back over to Pokemon Go to give you kind of a list of things, whether that's give a gift, send a gift, all of those things in Pokemon Go that you ought to do every day. It's institutionalized in the gameplay here.
Now, one thing that I will say that has a similar vibe is that this has a similar vibe to the mystery game that was Harry Potter that came out in the last, I believe, year or so. It was very narrative driven. It was a mystery game, and it functions on spell energy. Now, if you have played this at all, you know that spell energy is a huge component of the game, sort of the Stardust, if you will, of this game as opposed to Pokemon Go. But that is a similarity as opposed to the other the other Harry Potter game, the mystery game, in which you got these sorts of things for different tasks that you would do. So if you have played that mystery game, it'll look very familiar. If you have not, it may be worth your time. I stopped playing that game because it lost me somewhere in the plot, but you had to perform different tasks and you got spell energy for them.
So during that last, shall we call it catch sequence, you can see the main action for there is to trace a shape on the screen with your finger or a stylus following a pattern.
Spell.
So that is going to privilege both your accuracy and your speed at doing it. So I found there are times if I'm really fast, even if I'm less accurate, it seems to rate that better. So you've got like fair, good, great, and something I've never achieved at the end.
But it values them both.
But it values them both. But one of the things that I think is interesting is you can decidedly see the antecedent to that in Niantic's first game, Ingress.
Absolutely.
So there's glyph tracing that you have to do
in Ingress
at various places. In fact, it is so similar that I'm pretty sure I even recognize some of the patterns as being Ingress glyph patterns. So that's kind of, it's not surprising to see them repurpose that, but it's totally absent in Pokemon Go.
But there are still some of the standard Harry Potter sigils that you recognize, right? The Aloha Moral sigil, you know that comes straight from Harry Potter world.
Jason says Masterful is that top tier. Obviously, I haven't hit it yet.
Yeah. I have with the potion once. Mostly it's just the great, so...
But yeah, this section for daily and monthly achievements I think is fantastic, and I hope Niantic backports that to Pokemon Go, just to have that list present for the things that one ought to do every day.
Yeah, I have completed it over the last couple days now. I think the last 2 or 3 days, the daily tasks, and that does give you some benefits, right? So things that you're looking for often are coins, spell energy, different sorts of bonuses for XP, so that will help you level up and complete more of your profession quite quickly. So those daily things do add up. Additionally, brewing potions, right? That is part of the large-scale tasks that will eventually give you more perks in the game. So it's worth your time to do those.
So as another Pokemon Go analog, so there are 2 things which are analogous to Pokemon Go, or Pokemon spawns, which are confoundable locations and ingredient spawns. So as you're moving about the world, and one of the things that's worth noting is the game is clearly attempting, I think, to curb the fact that there's, we can be honest and say it exists, of people playing Pokemon Go and driving, that it really is trying to avoid that. But as a friend of mine pointed out, it's not done perfectly, so it's probably just going to cause people to drive more dangerously if they're driving and playing. So obviously safety should be a concern, and you shouldn't be a distracted driver. But that's definitely something that they're trying to do, because the interactions generally take longer at a given spot.
One thing that's interesting about this game, I will say, having been a passenger while you're driving, is that as opposed to Pokemon Go, wherein Pokemon would just stop spawning if you were going too fast, for this game, the confoundables still spawn, no matter how fast you're going. It's just they also disappear on the map. So if you can tap it quickly, you have access to that, whether you're going 5 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour.
But yeah, that's definitely something I can see them addressing, and maybe it wasn't done super well. But my first thought when I started playing was, oh man, each location-based event is going to take a lot longer. But if you start a confoundable at one location and move to another, it doesn't disappear. So it's not like interacting with a Pokestop or a fortress where you can like distance away from it, which you can do at greenhouses, restaurants, or inns and fortresses. You can distance yourself out of those.
However, yeah, if you click in, unlike Pokestops or gyms, if you click in at an inn where you get the spell casting help, with the foods and cakes and whatnot, if you tap in range and then you suddenly leave range, it will tell you immediately that you're out of range. It will not allow you to receive. So one thing that was pointed out, I think it was Pokemon Master Holly pointed it out to me in her video. She didn't at me, right? Of course, but I watched the video. If you click the X button at the bottom after you have done the swipe on the inn, it does credit you with the spell energy without having to go through the screen of catching it or, right, having the spell energy be credited to your account. So that is sort of a nice little hack there because that's an extra 10 seconds you can't get back. And on that note, with the ends and, as I'm going to call them probably often, the stops, Pokestops, once you spin that little thing and click the X button, the white smoke comes up out of the chimney to let you know that you have already hit that spot. So if you have hit it, it'll be a 5-minute time wait between hitting it again, in which the smoke will disappear after the 5 minutes. So you know you have a visual cue on the overall map as to what you've hit and what you've not, which is nice.
So one of the things you can do is you can take pictures of yourselves, as you saw here. So you have, what's interesting about the player profile is that it's entirely flexible and your display name is separate from your login. So in Pokemon Go, you can only change your display name a handful of times. There's a cooling off period, but your in-game name you can change at will and as many times as you want in Harry Potter. The camera function also has a number of sort of filters and items that you can
lenses.
do. So we're going to see several silly faces of me. It's not great for identifying beards.
What was happening there?
It couldn't identify my face over the beard, so it keeps trying to put scarves around my beard. But
look, you look like Hagrid.
Yeah, there's a variety.
Oh my god.
There's some things which are clearly Harry Potter. There's different house-themed scarves.
Hagrid. Harry.
Yeah, so it's good stuff.
Death Eater.
Could be a Death Eater if you're so inclined. So this you can change on the fly too. So all of that stuff, that doesn't look that different.
Wizard Harry.
You can change those things on the fly, which is pretty cool.
Sorry, I'm really loving this randomized feature on you.
You were sitting next to me, but I don't think you knew this was happening.
No, I didn't know it at all. I was totally playing the game. So yeah, this is almost like your, yes, it's called the Ministry ID, but it looks more like a passport, which I'm totally into. So as part of that, you can see on your passport how much you have walked. Walking, which directly relates to your, as they will call it, the portmanteau, or port keys.
Or incubators.
Incubators, eggs, right? Pokemon Go, crossover.
So that's the distance tracking analog for that. One of the things that sticks out is the UI is actually not great. It can be difficult to see certain things that you want to know, like how much spell energy you have is not apparent from the main screen. And it's actually not apparent from your profile either, or from your inventory.
But from the shop.
The fastest way to see it, if you're not actively engaged in part of the game where it's used, is through the shop. There's two interesting things about the shop, one of which there is an in-game currency, gold coins, but for the specials, they actually show you those prices, at least here for us in US dollars. I assume that would be whatever national currency the account is named after. So I'll be interested to see if Niantic sees changes in their sales, showing those in in-game currency versus actual currency.
Mm-hmm. So one thing Jason points out is the Adventure Sync in Pokemon Go, which does track your distance. Now, one thing that I have noticed playing both of these over the last few days is that no matter how much I walk in Wizards Unite, Pokemon Go will still recognize that because Adventure Sync is linked up to my iPhone's health app. Now, that is not true in reverse. So I can walk in Pokemon Go, and that will stay stored on my phone, but it will not cross over to my port keys in Wizards Unite. So be wary of that when you are playing. If you are switching between apps, that does matter.
And so not only does Adventure Sync not do anything for Harry Potter, if the app is... Even if the app is entirely closed, there's going to be no benefit there. So I saw that there was actually a difference in the distance traveled on the player profile versus what the port keys were showing.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that changes, because Adventure Sync is really a fantastic feature for that.
Yeah.
And as far as Niantic's data mining metrics, that has to be useful for them. So hopefully that gets adjusted.
Yep, for sure. I love the little wizard. So one thing that sometimes I get bored with is I will go in, and if you tap on your little wizard, it will wave at you. And it also plays with some magic sometimes. So oftentimes if I'm stalled in my video, it's because I'm watching my little wizard doing cool things on the map.
Scientist pops in and says they should be rolling out Adventure Sync soon.
Excellent.
So on the screen, we actually saw
I was hoping.
portal creation, which we had referenced earlier, potion creation.
Portals,
thinking with portals. So you have to acquire those ingredients and pop them into the cauldron to produce that. You can actually speed up that process by
master notes,
stirring it, correctly. Which, if you're not a spoiling kind of person, you will have to figure out. So there's like maybe 7 or 8 different kinds of motions of like pinching, pulling apart, clockwise, counterclockwise,
lines,
horizontal, vertical,
circles,
bubbly, taps, and
shakes.
all of those can be used as gestures, which then fill up to unlock a code. All of those are known, so you can hop onto
Reddit
on Reddit and find those out, or you can discover them for yourself. So later on here in this footage, we have one that I knew, and we had one that I merely was spending time to figure out.
After 2 or 3 times, it will remember those codes, but you will have to go back in and do the movement again. So even if the app remembers that pattern, you will still need to go in and create the master notes to save that additional 15% time.
And those are timed. So each potion, you can queue them up. They're like 4 deep, and they might take an hour and 15, an hour, 20 minutes to process. But that speeding up thing has to be done for each one when it's in the cauldron. You can't preload those as well. So if you do the first one and then kind of like forget about it, the following 3 are going to take their full time.
Mm-hmm. So was that your first? That was your first task there of the dark arts. So you will get a place image button down at the bottom then that will allow you to place it in your Harry Potter sticker book. I mean, your registry. I mean, let's be real, it's a sticker book.
Is it Harry Potter by Lisa Frank?
It is Harry Potter by Lisa Frank. There you go.
One of the things I've seen about the play sticker button is whether it's a network error or it's an app error, I'm not sure, but it's not been very responsive. I've typically had to tap it 3 or 4 times. I suspect it's probably a network data issue, although I did download the giant file for all assets ahead of time. So when you first start or any point in play, buried in the settings, there's an opportunity to download a 3.3 gigabyte file of all of the visual assets and I suppose sound assets for the game. So you don't have to do that while playing one-on-one. I had the space, so I went ahead and opted to do that.
I don't. iPhone.
Even then, still, it seems like there's some network loading errors.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not uncommon for me to have issues where it takes probably 20 to 30 seconds for one of these confoundables to load.
That's one of the things I'm almost positive was an Ingress glyph.
Which one? I didn't see the motion.
It's like bottom left, top right, straight down, for sure. Bottom right, top left.
Yeah. I remember that one. So what else is cool about this, Kevin?
The game in general, or this sequence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about all of the different various parts of the game. So we've talked about a little bit about the plot and the sort of mystery of getting all the magic back into its right places. We've talked about some of the tasks and some of the structures. So what else?
So as you can see from that XP tracker, I'm past level 5, headed towards level 6. So at level 6, you can choose a profession, and there are 3 professions in the game. And since I thought it was going to be houses, I thought Niantic was doing something clever. There were 2 factions in Ingress, 3 teams in Pokemon, so I thought we were going to have 4 houses in Harry Potter.
Oh no.
Which would have been clever, but they didn't do that. So there's 3 professions, which are more analogous to team, and those are Aurors, Professor, and what's the other one?
Magizoologist.
Magizoologist.
But those function very differently than teams.
Correct. In fact, they're cooperative rather than competitive.
Yes, that's the main key difference, which I like, because in the Fortress play, when you are doing those challenges, you work together regardless of what your profession is. So I, as a professor, can send a particular spell which helps his defense, or I can tear down the opponent's defense, helping his stamina, doing other things. So that's part of my profession, which makes me very good in having a couple extra professors in your challenges.
So the thing which is kind of analogous to Pokemon gym battles are these battles at fortresses.
Like raid battles.
Those are tiered, and at first what I thought what was happening was that each one was tiered separately, but it appears to actually go across all of them. So you have different chambers that you can open up. There's a total of 10 chambers. You start at tier 1 and you work your way down. And they have suggested ranks. My assumption there is that's the added ranks of the people participating, but I actually don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I can't.
Or if everyone needs to be at that rank.
We've only ever played just the two of us in the challenges,
Yeah.
so my guess is it's each individual person, but I don't know that. However, the challenges going forward, as you level up in the challenges, you also level up in the number of opponents you face. So in the first tier, you only face 2 opponents, whereas in 2, 3, and 4, you're going to face way more opponents with significantly higher levels.
So one of the main resources that you need are energy points here, and I'm learning how to fill those up here. So you go to different inns, you swipe for a spell pass. You can actually skip this animation. You still have to do the swiping of whatever sort, but then you can hit X back and you can skip that animation if you're so inclined.
And that's how you can avoid the X is out of range thing.
But you saw there was a 5-minute cooldown. So aside from that, the other kind of thing, which is equivalent to a Pokestop, are these greenhouses, whence ingredients come.
Also has a 5-minute cooldown, mind you.
But there's another feature for the greenhouse other than this acquiring of plants.
If you look at the bottom there, you can see that and now it's gone. There's a section to grow items. So as you will notice when you are brewing potions, you definitely need lots of ingredients. So you can grow these ingredients if you have the seeds and the requisite water. I did sort of a testing and decided that the water was totally irrelevant. So I got rid of all my water, but then was unable to plant seeds. So though the water does seem to be quite useless, it is integral in a backdoor kind of way for the growing process. I know that seems kind of backwards because real life you need water to grow things, but it doesn't actively tell you that you need X number of water to grow this thing, but it just happens. If you don't have water, it won't let you grow any of the seeds. So those are an essential portion of the greenhouses. You can tell that something is growing by either tapping on the greenhouse and it'll tell you what is growing and how much time is left. Or you can see that there is a green plume coming from the greenhouse, letting you know that something has been planted for which you can contribute and plant to make it yield better.
And you contribute by expending your spell energy to increase the output of the greenhouse. So as more and more people do that, it goes from producing 1 of the ingredients to 2 to 4, and it goes up. But the thing is, that's available to everyone. So if you go around in your town planting things, someone else can come around and collect them, and it says that anyone who contributes this share will be equal. There's text to that effect.
However,
but it wasn't clear by what mechanism that's true.
When the plant yields, I found out today, it just shows up on the map for 30 minutes. Like, that's how it displays that the plant has, I almost said hatched, lol, how the plant has profited, right? It just shows up on the map like a mushroom. So that's how you're going to pick that up, just as you would other ingredients that spawn on the map.
And that seems a little bit awkward. I realize that this game is a little bit less competitive and more cooperative, but that seems to be like a feature over which disagreements will arise. And a player might, if they plant a bunch and get nothing out of it, I can see them being like, well, not going to do that anymore.
But here's the thing. There's constantly seeds and water on the map spawning. And in your list of tasks that you accumulate over time, there are things like collect X number of ingredients, collect X number of seeds. So even if it's not to your advantage, right, you're still picking up the stuff because you want the perk, you want to be able to collect what that prize is. So you have them in your inventory, but if everybody's planting stuff, then you have too many seeds, too much water, and you can't plant any, right?
And you also have at least 3, but really 4 types of inventory to manage, because
for sure.
Your ingredients, your seeds, your general inventory,
your potions
all go into a different inventory kind, all of which expand at a cost to you, in-game currency or national currency, separately, or you can pay to do 3 of them together. But that's really frustrating because that feels like being nickel and dime to death for being able to carry stuff in the game. It was bad enough with Pokemon Go. You had to lay out a pretty significant chunk of cash to max out your bag and Pokemon storage. Apparently they saw that and said, man, people are doing both, so let's go ahead and make 4 different kinds of that.
One thing that I noticed, right, is that for 475 coins, you can expand 3 of those 4 sections, which, seems like they're nickeling and diming you, right? But okay, sure, you want the extra storage. But if you want to expand the number of seeds and water that you can collect, for 5 extra spots, it is 150 coins. That's insane.
So the difference there is if you choose to go to this shop and you spend for those 3 versus if you happen to run out in the middle of play, like you've maxed your storage and you try to pick something up, the game offers you this more expensive single expansion right then and there to pick up that stuff. So that's a little bit of impulse buy manipulation. It's definitely cheaper to go to the store and purchase those in a chunk.
Even if you go there, you'll see that the the plant section is different than the others.
But that pop-up doesn't tell you, hey, here's the cheapest way to expand your storage.
Yeah,
it says, hey, here's the most expensive way to
Well, it doesn't say anything. It just says, hey, expand your storage. Bleep.
Yeah. So if you didn't realize that that's what was happening, you may end up spending currency unwisely.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see here, there's these 3 different kind of things all represented by stops. There's actually more locations in Harry Potter than are in Pokemon Go, which I think is interesting. Sure. And some stuff has moved around, even if it's the same Pokestop using some of the same images. So that's an interesting feature. But I think here we're going to see one of our first fortress battle.
After the inn.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is it almost looks like a real-time strategy game where there's like NPCs on a board, and you can kind of choose to interact which ones you're going to interact with. So in the first few days, Heather's been able to play a lot more than I have. So she's been consistently of a higher level than I've been, which is similar to Pokemon Go, actually. But so she was able to take on the more aggressive or powerful NPCs. And then after she finishes that, she's able to use her skills.
From my profession.
Which are profession dependent, which we'll talk about in a little bit more in depth, to assist me in my portion of it. So we chose separate professions, which allows us to kind of share strengths and manage weaknesses. And I think that's an interesting part of the game. So if you're playing Pokemon Go and you're on a team in which no one else in your town is, you're in for a bad time. And it's probably better for you to be on the same team as people who are near you that you play with frequently. But for Harry Potter, the opposite is true. You're going to want a diversity of skills. And that, I think, is interesting.
So it's not going to benefit you to have 4 Aurors in the same challenge. Yes, those are going to be basically your wild mages who are, using spell energy to fight the things. But you're going to want a professor or 2 to give you the extra stamina, the extra power, weaken other opponents' defenses, and that will greatly benefit you in your work. Now, with that being said, for me, challenges seem to be a little bit easier than they do for you. Not just because of our level differences, but because the way my lessons are phrased, it gives me an extra step up in these sorts of challenges.
Yeah, we actually haven't compared individual skills, so it would actually be kind of funny if the skills were mostly the same, just reflavored. I mean, it's probably similar to the case, but there's level 6. So at level 6, you can choose your profession, so that's what we're going to do here. And there's 3 different kinds. I wanted to look at them each carefully to see. We actually didn't discuss overly much, although I think by the time I did choose, I knew you were going to be a professor.
Because I had already been there.
But I made my choice kind of separately from that. But that's I just think it's a really interesting part of the game that the previous 2 games, the factions and teams have been competitive, and these ones are cooperative.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, though. See, here's the description of all of the different ones. You get sort of an overview, and I knew pretty quickly that from having been a fan of Harry Potter, right, that your Auror is going to be doing much of the battling, or at least the front lines of the battle, right? So your professor is sort of your McGonagall type figure, your Albus Dumbledore. So that's, of course, where I went with that, which, I mean, obvious reasons, because Maggie Smith is a really cool chicken. So, yeah. So one of the things that I haven't explored much is what the perks of the Magizoologist is in terms of battle. I know that for some people, having the ability to work with animals was a primary motive for them in choosing that profession. But for me, I kind of went old school Harry Potter and wanted to be like the rest of the witches and wizards who were teaching. So I ended up choosing that. And my lessons do look a little bit different than this, right? So as part of that profession, you get I don't want to say spokesperson, but for the R's, right, they of course have Harry Potter, who helps to teach them the ways of being an R. For professors, right, we have McGonagall, who teaches you all of these lessons and helps you to be better at your skill. So it does take, I guess, the currency for that is your spells, right, which you can see in the top left corner up there. Those you get from returning confoundables. You will also need books. So those you get from doing some of the challenges, which become increasingly important as you level up.
I've been thinking of those as scrolls in books.
Scrolls.
But yeah, so you start off with 20 or 15 or so, and then you acquire more as game goes on, and you have to spend those to power up your skills. So some skills are kind of one-offs. Some have like 3 tiers, and when you completely unlock any given spell, you open up its following versions. So you can kind of look and see which portion of the spell tree you want to work on first, which is kind of similar to the way kind of Skyrim spell progression operates.
I should have recorded my spell tree because it looks very different than yours.
Oh, okay.
There are three main tiers, sort of the hexes, the charms, and the defenses. And you can sort of work your way through the different kinds, but they are locked off until you complete that. So you're restricted from some things until certain levels, and others, as long as you have the scrolls, you can choose those lessons.
So most of the skills that I've seen thus far are increasing your damage, increasing your stamina. They're combat-focused skills. 1 or 2 of them increase the amount that like your hex does, or different spell components, but the actual mechanics of that doesn't really appear super important as far as choosing them goes.
For me, for the profession, if you look on the expertise page of the game, right, so the spell tree is right on the other side, right, so here's the lessons portion. If you look down at the bottom, you can click the expertise, and it will give you an overview. I can't find the camera apparently. You can find an overview of the sorts of things that you're going to be doing in that profession. So for me, I have currently a level 1 of 8 in hexes. I have level 1 of 2 in charms. I have level 1 of 8 in sort of defense charms, and 0 of 8 in some of the other charms. What do you want to say?
If I can interrupt you briefly, this is how you contribute to greenhouse plant growth, is by doing this little H spell that increases the yield. Sorry.
So, for your focus then on the expertise, right, you can get to a max of 5, and you start out at 2. So it's not as if you're going to be making huge strides in those sorts of things, but you will be eventually leveling out your stats in different categories. So for now, the things that I am most skilled in are defense with an extra 17%, an extra good portion of power, stamina, precision, and critical power. So I have 61% critical power, which helps me to crit those spells much faster than, ours or others.
So one of the things we saw on the screen just now were dark detectors, which are effectively
eyeballs,
lures, and incense in Pokemon Go terms. They increase the power and prevalence of dark art confoundables, but you can put more than one on the fortress stop at a time, right? You put up to 3.
Well, so if you put 3 on a particular inn, then it will attract more rare and difficult confoundables to that location. So if you put 1 or 2, it's going to attract your average type, sort of for reference, the sticker book items that take 1, right? So the 1 item pieces or the 1 of 5 pieces. If you are using the sorry, what are they called again? The little eyeball things. If you're using those, it's going to attract the 1 of 15 sorts of pieces. So that's a big difference in the kind of things that you'll be fighting. You will definitely need extra potions for those because they will likely, those traces will run away, or you just won't have strong enough spellcasting.
Have we talked about the different kinds of potions yet? I don't think we have.
No, we haven't.
So there's 2 main types of potions, which are healing potions, and then let's call them spell augmentation potions. So the spell augmentation potions are blue, and they...
For now. Sorry, for potions. Go on.
But this is the case. So they increase your ability to cast spells in situations like this for cute little derpy sheep creatures. I would like this one to be a pet, please. But
with its creepy web toes.
Yeah, it's got little flipper feet, but it's like cute AF, and I like it. But so you have these 2 different kinds of potions, one which increase your spell's efficacy, and the other which you can use in healing potions. So I've been going through the healing potions relatively quickly, doing the fortress battles. It's not clear to me if that health regens outside of that system, because I haven't waited long enough to find out. I've just been pounding those red potions.
Every time you enter a challenge, though, your health goes back to the top. I did notice that today, because I did 4 and 5 different challenges back to back, and my health stayed at the top after every single one. So
have you died yet in a battle?
I have not died in a battle.
I wonder what happens. We need to find out for scientists.
I've never died.
Oh, or for science. Scientist is in the chat. Maybe scientists can go die in a battle and let us know.
Hey, don't do that. That's sad. Why'd you tell him to go die in a battle?
No, it's for science.
Yeah, but that's sad.
So, yeah.
So your spell type, or your potion types, Kevin, right? You want to continue?
No, go ahead.
Nope. Okay. So one thing that you will notice as you scroll through your recipes information on your spell list, right, you can find a list of what is required and their functions. So one of the interesting potions that is available, it acts sort of like an egg in Pokemon Go, giving you extra or double XP for traces, challenges, and port keys for 30 minutes. So that is the brain elixir that you can find in the shop, or you get that from some rewards. So that is not exactly related to the healing potions or for the traces specifically. And as you level up, more and more potions will be unlocked for you. Things that will keep your confoundables from disappearing, things that will lower the difficulty, things that will give you extra XP. So those are different kinds of potions that he didn't cover.
Jason says that when you die in battle, you get knocked out, there's a timer, and then you restart at full health.
Oh, nice. Thanks for science, Jason.
Andy, I too got seriously serious. My feelings were hurt bad by a snake. I went through 4 of those red potions. I'm glad that I had them. But yeah, it was a rough time.
I have never gotten in the critical mass of health.
I was down to 1 health point.
Oh my gosh!
And I didn't even know what happened when I died. Like, I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe the game's over. So I was like pounding those red potions.
I have never used more than 1 health potion, and I wasn't even low at the time. Like, I don't know if that's just part of the professor profession, or if it's just, my playing style.
At the level I was fighting in at for the snake, it was getting 2 or sometimes 3 attacks for every one of mine. So, just the DPS from it was insane. Well,
and it's not uncommon when you are fighting a creature, i.e. your oddities. It is not uncommon when you defend successfully to be hit by 4 or 5 damage points. That's just part of the game, right? Your spell doesn't defend from all damage, but it is microscopic enough that you're not going to die unless you get hit over and over and over again, constantly. Sorry, Andy and Jason.
It happens. What can you do?
It happens.
So one of the confoundables that is, I think, rather annoying is you have to rescue like hapless house creatures, like other Harry Potter wizard people, and it's like
students,
the Slytherin student or the Ravenclaw student, and man, the Ravenclaw student must be like the derpiest of students because I've saved that dude like 9 times.
I have saved the ferret Slytherin student 9,000 times.
The ferret's Hufflepuff, isn't it?
No. Well, in the game, yeah, sure, but the Slytherin student is turned into a ferret, so... Yeah.
I thought the Slytherin student had, like, ropes around it.
No.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, they're
this
different
is the
variants.
snake in which I nearly died a bunch.
Oh, this is that one we're gonna watch?
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Okay. We're watching. Defend yourself. It didn't look like you defended yourself there, Kevin.
I did. It's just, it's difficult.
Oh. Oh.
So,
yeah, this is not really going your way.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. I wasn't actually watching the health bars at this point, so I looked up and saw that it was gone. I was like, oh no! And then I'm like, oh man, that did not bring much health back.
So one thing to notice on this snake, as you are doing your attack, the circle for which you are getting the spell energy shrinks. So the less time that you're in that circle, the more it shrinks. So do your best job at aiming there is what the moral of the story is.
And it's a little bit awkward. So when you interact with the screen, you kind of bring that thing down from the top.
You don't have to. You can pull it from the bottom.
I tried a couple different ways and it always came down from the top regardless of where my finger started on the screen.
You can touch the end of your wand and it will start there.
I wasn't able to make that work, so I'll try it again. Maybe that was my fault. So you have to aim that circle into the target zone that appears on the creature. It has to stay there for that certain amount of time. You can see it power up, and then you get a chance to trace whatever the spell happens to be. And then in the interim, you have the Protego spell, which kind of operates like damage reduction in another game, where it just reduces the amount you take.
Yep.
However, you see that little red flicker in the spell. If you hit that, that looks to be like the crit marker.
It is the essential portion of the spell. You can see that in Confoundables too.
And if you miss it, it will tell you the spell is not complete.
Right. So that's why it's present in Confoundables as well, because you're not actually successfully creating that spell. So if you miss it, you're not doing a thing. You're just like failing to attack.
Yeah, but that was at least 3 health potions, maybe 4. Andy said he was level 4 when he attempted that.
That's pretty low for kicking a snake butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we've got 3 tiers of messages there from the app to read.
And that's the portion of the game in which there's a mystery, right? So that's part of the mystery section of the registry. If you take a look down at the bottom, you can see the different types of things. The trophy cup thing is what you get from challenges. The bottom right is events, which I have not witnessed any events yet. And then the second to the right was the mystery pieces, when you get things like newspaper clippings or envelopes or articles from that. What? You were going to say something?
My train of thought just 100% derailed.
Just went out?
I had a thing.
Is this you choosing your profession? No.
No, we already did that.
You were just doing your spell.
Yep, just doing stuff.
Hi, see?
So you can tap on your little guy and he or she waves. And also this person will hop onto a broom if you exceed the speed limit.
Yes, which is awesome. Also, the avatar, as I said earlier, plays with magic and sometimes surprises itself and like does it crappily. It's really funny.
So as you can see, the game is incredibly deep as far as like things to do and depth of play. It's much greater than Pokemon Go. It seems like there's more to do here. But as a general thought, I find the gameplay less compelling. And that may just be here at the beginning, that may change. But it's not fun. But something about the gameplay is less compelling, and I don't know that I'll be playing as much 6 months from now or a year from now. Whereas Pokemon Go has pretty consistently, as I've been playing, kept my attention. I'm not sure that that's going to be the case here.
One thing that I find interesting and probably intentional on the game developer's part is that the confoundables do not indicate on the map if you've already done a similar task, right? So you may end up doing fighting against that snake 7 or 8 times and be tired of fighting that thing, which you can run away. But that's part of the game thing, right? There are probably 50 different game screens for those confoundables that you have to complete all of them for the registry. So you're just mad tapping on the screen to make sure you get through those tasks.
And so one of the things I wanted to kind of pose to viewers, if you're frequent viewers of the channel, welcome back, is whether you would like us to cover more than just Pokemon Go, like, and Harry Potter, Niantic games during that time, or to spin off and have a separate show just for Harry Potter stuff, or to kind of split our time. So if you're also playing Harry Potter and you want to see that kind of content mixed in with your Pokemon, or if you like to keep your Pokemon and your Wizards separate, just let us know in the chat over there what you think, and that will definitely influence our decision.
Yeah, for sure. So even for today, we weren't sure whether to do an hour of Pokemon Go and an hour of Wizards Unite, or to do half and half, or to do none of the above. I'm just kidding, that wasn't an option.
I would like to weigh in on a controversial issue and be firm on it. When my administration comes to power, I don't like calling this game Woo.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm anti-Woo. And
WU Wizards Unite Woo.
And I plead with the internet to not make that a thing. Don't like it.
Yeah.
So general pros and cons of the gameplay in general. What do you think?
Sorry, I was looking at Terror's comment. Spell trace movements are consistent with the Hogwarts mystery ones for each spell. You are correct. I have noticed that as well. And so that is kind of a nice feature, right? You don't have to learn like 9,000 new traces there, but some of them are common. If you can get your writing of the E letter, that will greatly benefit you.
This confoundable is ridiculous, by the way.
Yes, I agree. A chicken and fireworks. Sorry, I totally missed your question.
General pros and cons for the game thus far. Like, what have you enjoyed? What have you not enjoyed? What are potential issues that you think need to be smoothed out?
I have really enjoyed the runestones aspect of the challenges, wherein for all of the different confoundables you're finishing, you get runes for that particular thing that you can then use in challenges. The higher the rune, right? So if you use a tier 1, you get a couple items. If you use a tier 4 or 5 rune, you get much more items and explicitly some of those books from the mystery section. So I really like that aspect of the game. I think it's incentivizing doing those challenges, even if it's just by yourself. That's probably one of my favorite things because those are harder to get registry items. One of the things that I definitely don't like is how reliant many of these confoundables are on potions. Yes, potions are integral in the way of a wizard, but I don't like the fact that so many of these traces will disappear or give you a completion for a fair spell, but in the next one you don't get a completion for a great spell. So like there's no consistency in the way you're tracing those. That's probably my least favorite thing, and how often you have to use potions, right? Because sometimes I brew a potion that takes 8 hours. That's a significant chunk of time when I could be brewing things that are 2 hours and just run of the mill, but I don't have space for that.
How do you, as a new player to the game, how do you think the learning curve is? Did you find that you did things that were time wasteful very early on that you corrected quickly? Do you think there's enough, I don't want to say hand-holding, but maybe a little hand-holding for the new player? Because there's lots of like meta plot, like bam, here's all the meta plot, but there's almost no here's how you navigate the thing, here's where your important stats are stored, here are the things you should be saving for, here's the things you can spend. Mm-hmm. There's very little like onboarding
I think it would.
How do you feel about that?
I don't mind it so much. I have figured my way out quite quickly and ways to get through those faster. One thing I do think that would have been helpful that Pokemon Go does is give you a very brief tutorial, right? I'm sure we've all clicked on that Pokemon Go tutorial on accident a couple different times, but that would have been helpful in my introduction to this game. Because I was just blasting through the narrative unknowingly because I was so excited that I skimmed right through all of that. So that would have been nice, but I don't mind the learning curve. It hasn't been over cumbersome.
It seemed a little steep for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly sure what I should be doing, and partly because the way my time was constrained on launch and the second day, I wasn't able to actually even make it to an inn or tavern on the first 2 days of play. So that is integral to the play experience, and that wasn't clear because where I was at, stuff was happening, and so it wasn't clear that I was only experiencing a tiny sliver of the game.
Yeah, so as we've talked about before, that spell energy, right? You have to go and get the spell energy or finish tasks to get that, or buy it in the shop, right? But who's doing that? So you have to go do things like spin inns to get that spell energy. Otherwise, you're only experiencing that small sliver of the game.
I bought something on day 2 from the game. It was the $1.99 intro pack.
Okay.
Which was enough. The reason I bought it is it was enough gold coins to expand my 3 storage one time. And I thought, well, I'll throw $2 at this to see if I dig it.
Yeah.
Because that's less than a coffee.
Right.
So that was fine. But I don't expect. I don't see myself spending the amount of money that I have on Pokemon Go.
Oh no.
Here.
No.
Thus far yet. I mean, unless the gameplay significantly changes once these intro levels are out, man, it's just not compelling for me thus far yet.
Yeah. I have sort of a similar gotta finish them all kind of thing, right? So in Pokemon Go, I feel like I have to finish the Pokedex. For Wizards Unite, I feel like I need to finish my registry already. I already want to go and get that sticker booklet. I'm a good Lisa Frank artist, and I need all my stickers. So, sorry, our face has just gotten giant. So, I feel like the game will keep me as long as the registry is incomplete, if that's fair.
I don't find completing the registry to be a task I actually care much about. Completing the Pokedex and seeing all the different types is compelling to me. Whenever I pop into the Pokedex and I see Kanto 151, that feels good. But because the things in the Harry Potter registry are a seemingly random assortment of things that are just hanging out, I don't have any emotional attachment to putting them all in there.
Sure.
Whereas for Pokemon, I've got 20 years of wanting to collect all those little bastards. That's not present for Harry Potter. And in fact, the whole idea of going out to catch things, shoehorned into the Harry Potter universe, feels a little awkward.
I don't think so. Because, how do I say it? In part of the Harry Potter world, right, you have people his name just left me. Newt, the guy who collects all of the creatures, right? These individuals are collecting... Newt Gingrich. Yeah, that's it. So people like this are collecting creatures, right? So we've got some creature collectors. We've got some who are collecting artifacts, right? We've got some who are collecting those things for selling and purchasing. So it doesn't feel totally weird to me, having been part of the Harry Potter universe for a while now.
Going around and fighting stuff at specific locations does seem reasonably Harry Potter-ish, but the need to collect them and stick them in a registry feels awkward ad hoc. I can imagine a committee meeting to be what's the Pokedex in this game? That's the question that got this result. We'll have a sticker book registry. Because if you didn't have the idea of a Pokedex in your head, I don't think you would reasonably come up with the sticker registry.
Okay, let me rephrase this. So think bureaucracy at its finest, right? Think bureaucracy mixed with some kind of chaos and the need for identifying the pieces that you have found so far, right? So that's what this is functioning as. It's a bureaucratic measure to try and make sure they've covered all their bases. So for you to collect all of the fragments of this one piece then signifies that you all have done the thing in a very lame kind of fashion. It's Ministry of Magic is very government, bureaucracy, lots of moving pieces kind of thing.
And then just from a graphic standpoint, then it would be more sense to have something that is basically like a passport with stamps that, like, you know, this is the document that shows you've done the things, rather than
well, we have that.
The sticker book.
Yeah.
To me, it seems awkward.
Sure.
And if I'm honest, it seems a little bit lazy. Like, there was too much of an attempt to reskin Pokemon Go. So, like, there are some pretty serious play differences between Ingress and Pokemon, right? There's no need to, like, claim territory and build those portals. I think there could have been a reasonable extension difference between these two. And, I mean, granted that Niantic is limited, right? So I'm not just totally trying to, like, shit on the company. Obviously, I've played every game they've produced. But it's location-based, and that is going to shape the game design. But it just seems like a little bit more time should have been spent to do something that feels more Harry Potter-y than the Lisa Frank sticker book of Hogwarts.
I think it would have been interesting. One thing that we haven't talked about, right, is the different areas in which certain kinds of those registry items pop up. So an area with a flag that says dark arts is where those confoundables will show up in more frequency. One thing that I would find interesting if they were to do some kind of plot to this is that certain kinds of confoundables show up in certain kinds of locations in which you have a map that identifies those sorts of things in particular places. I think that would be interesting, right? If there was some kind of location-based asset mapping, right? If dark traces tended in the mystery to show up in parts of places. So I think that would have been an interesting spin on things, but I am quite enjoying the game so far. But then again, I have a penchant for finishing tasks, so registry needed to be complete.
Fair enough.
So I think that's a pretty good intro so far of the game. We talked about the structure. We talked about some of the different items. We talked about the difficulty levels and the creepy eyeballs that you've got to use for lures, as in Pokemon Go. So yeah, I think it will be an interesting game to see how it unfolds, and I'm hopeful to see where it goes and what the level cap is, right?
But yeah, one final thing also, in the chat, if you want us to have equal time between Pokemon and Harry Potter, on Monday, let us know. If you would be more interested in a specific show for each game, let us know. I do have an exciting pre-announcement. If you noticed the MS Paint version of the Pokemondays logo at the beginning of this. So our chibi figures were done by Wen, who goes by @PomponWay on Twitter, and they're super sweet for Pokemon, and so we also commissioned her to do Harry Potter things, and they are in the hopper and on the way. In the interim, there's an MS Paint version that I did with some free time. So if you're interested in a Harry Potter specific thing... Harry Potter. Let us know.
Harry Spooter.
Or if you want, you don't mind mixing your Niantic games, let us know that. Also, over there in the chat.
Yeah. Thanks for playing. We hope you get out and explore some wizardry and or collect some Pokemons and figure out how to balance the two because they don't work at the same time, which is sad. But yeah, continue to play. Let us know what you find. Let us know if there's anything cool that we should know, and tell us what you want to see.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out in the chat. We appreciate everyone. Thanks for the follows. You guys will appear in the credits. We're Let's Play Games West Virginia. We've got something going on every day of the week. Mondays are typically Pokemon Go and maybe Harry Potter. We'll see. You can see our schedule running around Ticker Tapely at the bottom there. And we will definitely see you guys next week. So thanks. We're glad to be back from Go Fest, and we will see you guys soon.
Woo!
Thanks,
Go
everybody.
Fest.